I don't know why you're telling me. I'm not involved. You made that very clear.
Skyrim has plenty of guilds for us to talk about, and before we get into talking about them, we are specifically looking at guilds, not factions. So I won't be discussing the Stormcloaks or Imperials because we have more than enough to work with here. We're also not ranking them based on their quests, only on their lore, which might help a few of them here look a little better. I guarantee you this won't be the case for the Bards College. These lots suck almost as much as their questline does. Okay, maybe that's a little harsh, but I really can't find much meat on the Bard College's bones. What I do know is that they hate King Olaf, aka Olaf One-Eye, and express this hatred by burning an effigy of him every year. I want you to note that this is the same King Olaf that captured Numenix, a dragon, in Dragon's Reach all the way back in the First Era, so these bards have been doing this for a while. They were pissed off because Olaf sacked Solitude during the War of Succession to become Skyrim's king, and are butthurt thousands of years later. But that's kinda all I could find for the Bards College that's any kind of interesting, and it's simply a footnote in Olaf's history. So, 3 out of 10? Yeah, 3 out of 10.
Disappointed!
Next, still in the north of Skyrim, is the College of Winterhold, which has a lot more, and in my opinion is the superior academic establishment, even if safety is a major concern. Of course, we have all the nonsense with the Eye of Magnus, the Great Collapse introducing some good old-fashioned magic racism, sorry Dunmer, but most of the College of Winterhold's interesting lore comes from this dude, Shalador, who founded the college. He also built all of Winterhold in the First Era apparently, but we have to take what we hear about Shalador with a grain of salt, because, well, apparently he's done everything. He, apparently, made Winterhold with a whisper, made a giant ice fortress there too, stole the secret of life from Akatosh, fought an army of Dwemer under King Rorcan, who had Spellbreaker, so I don't know how he managed that one, and travelled basically everywhere in Tamriel. The College of Winterhold also has some history in the Second Era too, largely to house a lot of books. In many ways, the college suffers from only being in Skyrim and not having a massive amount to do with anything else. It does feel a little bit like a Mages Guild replacement in Skyrim. I mean, sure, there's probably a link between the Red Mountain exploding and the Great Collapse, but what we have is still pretty interesting, I think. So, a 7 out of 10 seems fair to me.
Not bad, not bad.
Next, we have the Thieves Guild, which is the same organisation we have seen throughout the Elder Scrolls series, and thus benefits from some legacy lore. They are also known as the Children of the Shadows or the Fingers of the Fox, with many cities across Tamriel accepting the Thieves Guild's existence as a form of crime regulation, since the Fingers of the Fox don't like competition. Nocturnal is their patron deity, hence the whole Nightingale thing, and while there have been iterations of the guild beforehand, the modern version can trace its origins to the Interregnum in the Second Era, after the fall of Remen Cyrodiil's empire, specifically to the Thieves Guild of Abba's Landing in southern Hammerfell. The guild spread out across the continent and fought hard to keep its reputation as the #1 thieving little scamps in Tamriel, eliminating competition like the Warth Rats. Now, just because the Thieves Guild is one organisation, technically, doesn't mean they all have the same success throughout the continent. The Iliac Bay's Thieves Guilds worked with nobles and even kings, while the one in Morrowind had to deal with rival crime organisations, like the Kimona Tong, and was possibly eliminated by them and the Fighters Guild before the 4th Era. Compare this to the Cyrodiilic version, who had many people believing its leader, the Grey Fox, was a mythical figure, and thus the Thieves Guild as a whole wasn't actually real. Of course, then we have the Skyrim contingent in Riften being one of the most violent iterations around, largely because they're okay with dropping bodies if necessary. Ultimately, the Thieves Guild massively benefits from its legacy lore throughout the Elder Scrolls, and was founded in the Second Era, just after all the other guilds were established under the rule of the Akaviri potentates. While it's pretty interesting and international, it's not the most intriguing guild Skyrim has on offer in my opinion, but it's pretty good I guess. A 7.5 out of 10 seems right.
Nice.
Now, it probably doesn't surprise you that I'm going to glaze the lore of the Dark Brotherhood like it's a Krispy Kreme donut. I've got a whole video talking about the history of the Dark Brotherhood, so I won't go into too many details here, but there is so much lore. Long story short, they started as an offshoot of the Morag Tongue, under the leadership of the Night Mother, who was, or rather is, the bride of Sithis. At first, the Dark Brotherhood worshipped Mathala, like the Morag Tongue, and I'm going to be honest, she isn't much better than Sithis. Now, I do want to point out that there is a little bit of confusion about who the Night Mother actually is, and this could be due to lore inconsistencies, retcons, or in general us not really understanding who the Night Mother actually is. The most popular origin story for the Dark Brotherhood, however, presents the Night Mother like this. Now, Sithis had kids with the Night Mother, who many believe to be a Dunmer woman, which makes sense given the Morag Tongue associations. Now, Sithis' bride had 5 children, but the Dreadfather commanded his wife to, return them to him. Yeah, that seems like the safer work wording. The town of Bravil, where the Night Mother lived, wasn't too happy about having Tamriel's worst mother bin her children, so they burned her house down with her in it. She survived, somehow, and her voice was heard by an unnamed individual, who later became the first listener. Which also explains why the Night Mother looks like that. Is Astra trying to do an impression of her? What isn't really being presented here is that Dark Brotherhood lore is a little fast and loose, but there is so much. From their first big assassination to the structure of the Black Hand. It's really dark, as you would expect, and the cult-like elements of the Dark Brotherhood, paired with their professional money-making model, make them very interesting. This puts them at odds with their parent organisation, the Morag Tongue, since they claim to be moral murderers, rather than Agent 47-style professionals. Again, I'm skipping over a lot, but if you are interested in knowing more, please do check out my Dark Brotherhood video. There are several games worth of rich lore to go through, after all, but for the sake of this video, all you really need to know is that Elder Scrolls lore doesn't really get much better than this. So, in my eyes, that makes the Dark Brotherhood a perfect 10 out of 10.
Everything, down to the last minute details.
Our final entry is far more interesting than the questline would have you believe: the Companions. You see, the Companions are the oldest guild in Skyrim, with their origins going all the way back to the Merithic era, when Ysgramor sought revenge on the Snow Elves for the Night of Tears, calling upon 500 of his mates to begin Operation Eliminate Knife Ears. Once he was done, he had the big sad, because his son died on the way over from Atmora, and built Winterhold. But a few of his companions broke off to begin exploring Skyrim. The main names we need to concern ourselves with include Yeek of the River, the captain of the ship Jorvaska, and Yonder the Tiny, a member of his crew. I'm not the only one who thinks these names are weird, right? Anyway, Yonder went to scout ahead and found the Skyforge, and its big old bird rock. When the rest of the crew caught up, Yeek figured he would establish a city here, turning his boat upside down to make it into a mead hall, and thus founded Whiterun. Later, the Companions would become a mercenary group that tried to stay out of political affairs. They also tried to beat the Atmoran racism allegations by making the Red Guard, Sirok the Lofty, Harbinger. Then made an Elf Harbinger, Henantir the Outsider. They also have at least one female Harbinger, with that one in question being Make of the Piercing Eyes. So they're pretty progressive, I guess. You know what? Good on the Companions. They went from elf exterminators to a very tolerant mercenary group that, like the Swiss, remain neutral. Too bad they're furries though.
Oh, there once was a hero named Ragnar the Red, who came riding to Whiterun from old Rorikstead. And the braggart did swagger and...
Now you probably all know about the Circle and their werewolf blood. The Circle itself is named after the circle of ship captains that were part of the fleet making up Ysgramor's companions as they sailed from Atmora. Although it did take a while for the companions to have this leadership group. This came about in the Second Era, when Colonel Longnose... seriously, what is up with these names? Colonel Longnose? What's next? Michael Fartfin? Good grief. Anyway, Colonel got the idea that there were usurpers in Jorvaska, and, in his words, gathered the true hearts of the companions in the wilds. These true companions slew the usurpers, and he established the circle so that other companions would have an example of what they should look like. He wanted the circle to show everyone else how to venerate the old ways of honour through blood. But rather than being more traditionally Admoran, he actually went to the old ways of Hircine, by the looks of things, forming a pact with the Glenmoral witches to make the circle werewolves. We don't know the specifics of this pact, although it wasn't until another harbinger, Turfig, that the companions turned properly to the ways of the beast. With the whole companions questline, the beast blood in the circle will likely come to an end, since Ayla, and potentially the Dragonborn, are the only two who still have it. Either way, the companions have a lot of lore for a guild that has only been in one game. Well, two if you count ESO, but you get what I mean. I actually think Bethesda has done a great job with the lore here, even if the job done with the actual questline is only okay. So, congrats companions. You get a strong 9 out of 10.
Yeah, baby! That's what I mean.
Now, you've probably noticed that I didn't include the Dawnguard because I don't really count it as a guild. If I did, I wouldn't rank it very highly because there isn't a massive amount there, and its current iteration is more like the Vigilant of Stendar with squatters' rights in Fort Dawnguard. It doesn't really have a lot to do with the organisation it shares its name with. Still, I hope you've enjoyed this video nonetheless, and if you did, would you consider a like and subscribe perhaps? Seriously though, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in another video.
And so the pack was born again, as the wolves of Jorvaskr, to rule in life and serve in death, as the moonlight star.